Hey there, this is Tanner Gers with Access Ability Officer, and you're listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am your first vice president. Joining me today is co-host and White Canes Connect creator, Lisa Bryant. Lisa, how are you today?
I am good, David. And what a great conversation with Tanner Gers. His team actually approached us about coming on the podcast. He has quite an interesting story, first off, about his blindness journey, but you guys got into the real nuts and bolts of website accessibility, the training, and the program around accessibility officer.
It really was an interesting discussion on that end. First of all, the tragedy, how he became blind is just amazing, and how he wasn't sure he was going to live. And he got through it, and he has excelled at what he's doing. He's going to be down in New Orleans at the national convention, so look out for him. He's got a couple of things going on down there, so make sure you catch up with him both in the exhibit hall and during the sessions that he's doing. Like you had mentioned, right in my wheelhouse with web accessibility and business and getting folks trained and either being able to be hired or even opening their own business.
So let's listen to our interview with Tanner Gers of Access Ability Officer.
Tanner, thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. So happy to be here. Can't wait to dive in.
We were just saying in a previous podcast how much we love when folks reach out to us, because that means that you definitely have some exciting things to share. Your team reached out to us and told us about the wonderful things you're doing with Accessibility Officer and your Olympic level type exploits, which we'll also give you a chance to share. But tell us a little bit about you and your background and whatever you're comfortable with sharing about your blindness.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, David, so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to share. So, my blindness is similar to a lot of journeys of loss. As an adult, I lost my sight in an auto accident, and I woke up in the hospital totally blind. I think that's the kind of the difference is I was totally sighted and then became totally blind overnight. Thankfully, I lost control of the car and no one else was involved. There was no one else in the car, and I didn't hurt anybody else but myself. But that was how I joined the world of the blindness community. And, I had been around severe disabilities growing up. I had volunteered a lot at Easter Seals.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually saw a blind person in real, quote unquote, real life for the first time just weeks before my accident. And I pulled up to this intersection and I'm one car back and I look over and I see the guy and he's very, stereotypical, right? Just polo shirt, tucked in, backpack, glasses on, right? He's got his cane, but I had never seen a blind person before except for like Mr. Magoo, right? And so he had picked up the white cane and held it out perpendicular to his body, parallel to the ground at eye level. Like came up off the ground, parallel to the ground, up around his
more like
head.
a weapon.
I know. I was like, he's doing a Ninja Turtle move, and and then I was just like, oh, because of my experience working with people with disabilities, I knew people do things different. So I was just like, oh, okay, that's how they do it. I had no clue, no awareness, and then 2 weeks later, I'm totally blind.
Wow.
So yeah.
And when was that?
That was March 28th, 2004. And then I got out of the hospital Memorial Day weekend, 2004. And so I saw that gentleman in March of 2004.
So now you are thrust into the community, and looking at where you are now, you obviously have sort of taken that on, not just in terms of being a member of the blindness community, but actually developing a career in advocating for advocacy. Tell us about that. How did you go from being in a world as a totally sighted person to not only now blind, but also wanting to help people who are blind and those with other disabilities.
Well, I'm so lucky, so blessed. I you know, she's known as Amy Porterfield today,
Yeah.
and she's NFB here in Arizona, big
Hmm.
figure now at Savvy. But she was a vocational rehabilitation counselor when she was Amy Murillo, and that's how I met her. And that was the
Hmm.
first person that I was like, wow, like she's bad. She is like on it. She's a pro,
Yeah.
and that kind of gave me some like idea of what's possible.
Hmm.
And then the second thing was holding my first paycheck as a blind person.
Mm.
I was so lucky, incredibly grateful that the first job that I applied for, I got, which was what was expected for me, right? Like as a sighted white male in the
Mm.
United States, like who can articulate, and communicate. Like if I got the interview, I got the job, and so it was
Wow.
expected from me. I
Hmm.
didn't understand the true pain, the true discrimination, the true barriers for a blind job seeker
Hmm.
until, until I got fired. And so that was the third catalyst, was understanding that pain of what it means to be a blind job seeker. And
Yeah.
even though they want to hire you, you can feel it. And then they understand how blind you are and everything changes.
Mm.
So when I was experiencing that, I knew that I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I knew that when I'm in the position to create employment opportunities for the blind,
Hmm.
I'm going to do it.
So that led to accessibility officer.
Yes, long story short, yes, it did. I was very fortunate to have represented, when I saw that blind man cross the street, I was deep in the enlistment process to serve for the military. I was highly
Mm.
influenced by 9/11,
Mm.
and my brother and I were going to enlist into the buddy system.
Hmm.
And in the last minute I bailed. I backed out. And I told myself whatever excuse, whatever story that my like ego needed to hear to have solace with that decision.
Hmm.
But really I was just scared.
Hmm. Hmm.
And finally I was just on this path where I needed to get out and do something different. And I felt that service, was still the right path for me.
Yeah.
And so I was incredibly motivated by the opportunity to represent the United States, since I couldn't do it in the military in the Paralympics, and insanely lucky to have represented the U.S. in track and field. And the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, back then it was just the USOC, the United States Olympic Committee, has a great athlete career transition program. And so I got fired July 7th, 2010. And in 2015, I got placed at a tech startup selling digital accessibility job boards. And that was the first time digital accessibility, like that term,
Mm.
came into my consciousness. And when I started to learn about the field, and that, holy moly, like it doesn't matter if you're blind or sighted, a screen reader is the tool to do this job. That's an opportunity. And I was just blown away. I was like, never before, outside of training people who are blind for work or school or whatever, never ever has there been a job where a screen reader is the tool to do the job outside of a rehab training environment. Like, and so I was, 100, like right there, my life was changed.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of sighted folks don't get. We had Dylan Hetler Gaudet on a few months ago, and after he testified in Congress, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, how could a blind man read a spreadsheet?" So forth and so on. People don't get that we can do those jobs because of screen readers.
Right. Right. It was so psychological. Like it was hurtful for me, to see my friends turn away. It was hurtful for
Mhm.
me psychologically, for my family to treat me differently.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
treated myself differently.
Yeah.
I discriminated against myself. I think
Mhm.
there's a generational unconscious bias that's embedded into our and societally, our culture.
Yeah.
We have terms and phrases for this. It's in our sports.
Mhm.
It's in our comedy. It is embedded into us.
Mhm.
And I mean, I discriminated against myself. So I try to have like empathy for the idea of fear and for the idea of lacks of knowledge and awareness. It's not their fault they're dumb, right? Because that's what it is, right? Like I
Yeah.
was dumb too. I didn't
Mhm.
know. I'm dumb to the accessibility gains, the technology gains, the mobility and transportation and the digital, the digitalness of disability. Forget about the cane and the dog. Like,
Mhm.
if you think that that's the only thing we got going, you don't know nothing.
Now, besides being a Paralympian, you're also a beep baseball player. Do you still play?
I love beat baseball. I mean, it is in my blood. Yes, I play.
Okay. Team name that you're on?
I play for the Bayou City Heat.
Okay. The Philly Fire
Fire.
of they won last year. They're the
Yes,
reigning
sir.
champs.
That's right. Pat, and Pat's the pitcher, and his son Casey Krause. Some stuff. They got an incredible team over there. Scott Hogwood's over there.
Yep.
Nick Silver, all of them. Yeah, they're doing really good.
We had Scott and John on a while back, so I'll put a link in the show notes for that episode. But I just think that I would love to play that, and I've got some other issues that would stop me from playing. But just to be active and doing things like that, it doesn't matter. It's not the major leagues, we get that, but it is fun for everybody to go out and play and to be active and again have the camaraderie of your teammates and so forth. Is it something that you do? Is it how does it work for you? Do you play every chance you get? Are you able to play a lot, or how does that work?
I try to play every chance I can, respective to my like physical health. The and my team, I'm in Phoenix, the Phoenix area in Arizona, and then my team's in Houston. And so we'll play at like regional tournaments, and I'm getting ready to go out there for the big team practice. We're trying to bring everybody in, and we have a mix of in-town players and out-of-town players, and I'm the only player out here. But I still try to I go hard on my practice. So I have my fiance hitting balls off the tee to me, and you know. And I'm timing it, like how many balls are we getting in 10 minutes? I need to know. All right, we got to do this faster. Like, and yeah, I'm pretty competitive with it. And I'm just, and it's like, it's, you know, whether it's games or it's sports, like I think this is like freedom. And on so many different planes, it's the freedom of expression, it's the freedom of physicality, it's the freedom of constraints of what's happening from day to day, 9 to 5, 9 to 9, whenever you're doing your thing. Like if you have family problems or professional problems or like school problems or whatever, like active play, competitive game, orientation, sports, doing that in a group is so freeing. Just the connection, the expression and the release of whatever's going on. I just I'm so grateful for beat baseball.
I was wondering how you're able to play in the Phoenix area where it's always so hot, but that makes a lot of sense going to Houston.
Well, and it's like I have these like quote unquote long COVID symptoms. I don't know, but ever since I've had COVID a couple times, my body really struggles with regulating body temperature. I
Mhm.
had I had, could not figure out what was going on. I ended up, through my Paralympic journey, I'd gotten connected with some, pretty big coaching groups and stuff. And I put out the whole thing, my like case study of what's going on with me. And it's like, it was so validating to hear like other coaches and athletes were having the same issue across the world. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like now, okay, so this is what it is now. All right, now how do we like solve for that? And I remembered a study that I'd read a long time ago out of the Oceanic region. I can't remember if it was like a New Zealand or Australian college, but they were studying athletes in college, and they wanted to know what cooled off body temperature faster. Was it ice baths or was it snow cones? Lo and behold, it was snow cones. I was like, that's transportable. I can do that. And I started to incorporate snow cones into me playing beat baseball. And I went from like getting heat exhaustion and heat stroke like throwing up, medically taken out of the
Mm,
tournament,
mm.
day one, day two, to, now I'm back to playing at a high level.
Back to accessibility officer. Why don't you start with what is it? When did you start it?
So, Accessibility Officer was founded in 2021, December. So, really, we got started in 2022, and we're a digital accessibility consultancy. So,
Mhm.
we help primarily local and state governments make sure their websites meet the standards that they're legally required to. And so we're a digital accessibility consultancy first, and then we wanted to hire talent who are blind or screen reader reliant. We
Mhm.
wanted to create employment outcomes and opportunities, but we could not source the talent with the technical skill or ability to do the job kind of at scales. Most of the talent that was in the digital accessibility that happened to be blind, they were already in jobs, right? We couldn't source new talent. And so we wanted to create a training program. So we did that. So we're growing the business. We're doing okay. And same year in 2022, we launched the CAT program, the Certified Accessibility Tester program. And it's basically, this is a rigorous, technical, skill-based training that's
Mhm.
very hands-on. And so we know the outcomes of this training. So it's like you get trained, you get certified, you get a job. We got
Mhm.
the work, we have the opportunities, and that's really the starting line. Is actually graduating is the starting line. And for many people, they haven't worked in a competitive integrated employment environment where they have multiple deadlines and priorities, and they have meetings, and they have to have like great communication and meeting etiquette, and they need to share their screen and be on video and do the digital accessibility testing and reporting, right? Like all of that on top of what they were just trained to do, and then do it well enough that it's like deliverable for a client. And so, giving them, it is definitely the beginning of the journey. But that, in a nutshell, is accessibility officer. We provide digital accessibility services, and we prefer to hire people who are blind to do it. We love to train that talent remotely in house and give everybody a job. You get trained, you get certified, and you get a job.
So let's talk about the training a little bit. Are they live classes, or do you say, "Hey, watch these videos and then we're going to do this test and then watch some more videos and you're going to do that test?" How does the training work?
The training is like a online graduate college level course where you have lectures and workshops, 90 minutes each on different days of the week. Then you have one-on-one mandatory meetings with the instructor, and then one-on-ones with apprentices who have successfully graduated the program. So about 5 hours of live interactions per week. And then on top of that is the online curriculum. Where's there's the reading, there's the homework, the practice stuff, the discussion posts, the quizzes. We have timesheets, and it's very oriented towards preparing you for the job. And that's why things like timesheets are included, is that we're preparing you for how to log your labor, how to, get paid as a contractor, as a consultant, as someone who might be working for a digital accessibility agency who has multiple clients, and I'm doing work against multiple clients. How do you log that labor? So all of this, so this is a very, again, very skills based, tactically based. How do we prepare people for this job?
And how long is the course? How many weeks is it? How does that go down?
Great question. Sorry for not answering. It's 14 weeks. And at the end of the 14 weeks, you would qualify to sit for two final exams. One's the trusted tester. You need a little bit of sighted assistance sometimes to pass that exam. So we provide sighted assistance on demand throughout the course and across these final exams. And then there's a moderated, final exam, which is basically doing the job. You get a website for the first time, you've never seen it before, and then you do a test and a report, and your report is your final exam. And you have a time window to do that in. And based on the quality of the report, based on how many violations you found respective to the available violations discoverable, right, you'll get a grade. And if you and that's how we grade it.
Are the websites that these folks are looking at, are they actual live websites, or are they dummy sites that you guys have created with certain errors, or there's enough errors out in the real world, you can just send them to a specific URL?
Yeah, that's right. So we've got to control the testing environment. Like, someone could just come in and just like completely remediate their website or totally change it day to day to day. So we need to control that environment and make sure that everybody is testing on the same website. So we know what the violations are there. It is a website that we built. We know the violations. We know where the automated violations are, where the manual violations are, what's the severity. And so, we have three different individuals manually grade the tests because as when you get into digital accessibility, you understand how ambiguous it is where it's very gray and blurred lines, and the success criteria are very interpretable. So we have three experts grade the final exam.
Once someone goes through this course, now they're ready. Let's say they go through, they pass, they have this certificate. Do you help them find a job? Do you give them a job? What's next?
Yeah, we give them a job if they've earned those certifications. And so this is, a very part-time job, 5 to 10 hours per week, because again, this is the starting line. Individuals at this point haven't earned really the capacity or capability to handle a full amount of work. They're too slow. The quality isn't, where it needs to be, better than a sighted person, because that's ultimately what you have to do. Digital accessibility has a lot of sighted people on it using screen readers to do this work. Native screen reader users will find more violations. We'll find more severe violations. We'll find more, issues that are later or more interactions within something. They're not inhibited by the mouse, right? Sighted people are prevented from finding violations because they're just not native screen reader users. So they don't understand how, to even come into violate, so it's even, my business partner who's been in the game, 20 years or so, and, our accessibility engineer who's been in the game 10 years, working with native screen reader users, learn stuff all the time just because of the nuance and nature of being someone, not being able to click. So we're okay with that. And long term, one of the purposes of the apprenticeship, not only is it the right thing to do, not only does it give working experience, not only does it give some money, not only does it provide fulfillment that I'm actually earning a living, but it provides the actual professional development and skill development required to succeed in this career field. It's LeBron James is, arguably the greatest of all time. But LeBron James today is going to destroy LeBron James his rookie year. Even though he's older, perhaps slower, doesn't jump as high, he just knows the game better. He's played it for twice as long, right? And digital accessibility is evolving, right? The standards are evolving according to the technological evolution. So so I can't emphasize enough. There's so much more to a job and being competitive in today's work environment than just getting the certifications and what we would call get to the starting line. And so it's really about how do we prepare a workforce of people who happen to be blind that are doing jobs as good as or better than the people who are not. And we have to do it at such a level that a hiring manager, someone without a disability, knows that you're so good, they don't care that you're blind.
What does the course cost?
So the course is a vocational rehabilitation sponsored program, so there's no cost to a user.
These folks get their certificate, they're working 5 to 10 hours per week doing jobs. What are their hopes when they move on and they get to a full-time job? What kind of salary could they get? Who's hiring them? Things like that.
So most of the digital accessibility, the bigger market picture, you got to understand there's new legal regulations in the EU. And so there's a lot of demand there. There's new regulations in the United States on multiple different levels, not just at the federal level, but at the state level. A lot of states are scrambling right now to adapt to this, and that's what's driving a lot of demand. So much demand that there's, primarily the jobs are going to be in consultants providing the support to these different agencies. It's not just a digital accessibility consultancy specifically. The job opportunities are expanding to contractors that are in the digital area space, that build websites, et cetera, that need a digital accessibility expert in-house because they're now coming after these contracts as well. And then you've got the big digital accessibility agencies that are more like the software heavy, sales heavy ones like Level Access, DQ, TPGI, UsableNet. et cetera. And then you've got the big companies and big government agencies. So federal agencies, Fortune 500 companies, they may have an in-house digital accessibility practice. So you could be working on a specific product. For example, I have friends that work at United Airlines, and there's a few. They have an internal accessibility team, and so they may work on the mobile product or this product or that feature on the website, and so there it's really restricted on what you're doing. Whereas, in a consultancy like mine, where you're working with a lot of clients, you might be focused just on the government. You might be focused on just the federal government. You might be focused just on, mostly B2C retail, like online retailers. So
Basically, you're picking a specific industry and sticking to that niche, is what you're saying.
I'm just trying to point out the different areas in which where you could be working.
Okay.
And your ability to do digital accessibility is really more industry agnostic, but however, your capacity for recognizing patterns and guiding remediation, like helping them fix it, would might help serve you in government, right? So like, and it's like, so like government agencies will use CMSs like WordPress and Drupal, but they also use like out of the box CMSs like Granicus or Civic Plus. And then big enterprise government agencies like our client, we have clients that, build on top of software platforms. So they buy Salesforce, they buy Microsoft, they buy Google, but those are just the software platforms that they then build custom applications on top of. And so then you're working with, multiple third party vendors. So being able to, you know, if someone just got, if a blind individual just got their certification, even if they've worked before or, maybe they haven't worked before and they get thrown into an environment like that, they're just set up for failure. They just can't navigate those complexities yet. They don't have a really, and I don't want to call it a supported work environment. I want to call it like an enabling work environment. We have the culture and what we really try to drive is like the opportunity to fail forward and learn. I was so proud when we had to make an employment decision. Someone got fired for disclosure. They were
Mhm.
violating some disclosure. They were sharing sensitive information, company documents that they shouldn't have been sharing, and they got fired. And we brought this internally on our team meeting, our monthly team meeting, said, hey, this is what happened. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. But this is what happens. We're sharing this information so that you guys don't make these mistakes in the
Mhm.
future, right? Like this is, bad. And two people raised their hand and said, I did the same thing.
Mhm.
And you know what? And I met them right where they at. Wasn't malicious.
Mhm.
Thank you for telling me. We're not going to do that anymore, right? No. Like, and it was
Mhm.
really, it was really like, you know, I'm so pumped, right? Because let's say they become that professional that is like as good as or better than a sighted person, and then they make the mistake like this just because they didn't know, and then that it's over for them, So I I'm very passionate about changing perspectives about blindness and what we can do in employment. And so that's what I'm really focused on building in our people.
And salary-wise, pretty decent salaries for these positions?
Thanks for looping me back. So starting at about $50,000 a year for full-time employment, you're going to look at $25 an hour. That's $25 an hour. So full-time, that's 50K a year. That's what you're looking at entry level. And then it goes up from there.
And who are you looking for to get into your program to get going? Are you looking for anybody that's willing to learn? Older folks, younger folks? Who are you looking for to get into the program?
So I have two answers for you. So I'm trying to help anybody that's willing to do whatever it takes to get a job. And if you've got the hustle and the effort, then like this is the path. However, the other answer is that the type of people who are most successful in this type of program, just understand the nature of the business, are going to come in to do two things. One is to use digital accessibility to get their foot into the door and then pivot into what they really want to do, or two, this is what they want to do. And either way, it's going to require you to work super duper hard and solve problems, think critically, and have urgency, like self motivated, self starting. There is, multiple touch points per week, but there's so much extra work that needs to be done. Just like, when you're doing math homework in school and you had problem after problem, it's like, man, when I got 40 problems, like you're just getting started, right? Like you got to be doing 40 math problems a day, every day. And then that's just to like pass the class, right? Or to get an A. If you want to get hired, you're going to have to go above that, right? So I think the people that are action oriented, and then the people that aren't scared of like learning a new language. So, let's call it sports. Like, I'm not a big sports fan, but I know there's a bunch of stats, right? So it's like thinking about baseball, it's like ERA, RBI, R, AB, KOs, right? Like, there's all these different terms that you got to learn that mean something. And so if you know, you know, and if you don't, you don't. And that can be intimidating, right? Understanding what WCAG is, WCAG 2.2, Section 508, what does, 1.1.1 mean? And what is an H3? And all of those things are not technical, right? It's just like, hey, this is what this is a new term and this is what it means. And I'm speaking this because I struggle with that. But if you have a problem learning new terms and new language, you're going to struggle. Outside of that, we want those core critical skills. We want people with great screen reader skills. Like tactically, we want great screen reader skills and computer skills. If you can't do Excel, if you can't manage your calendar, if you don't have like know all the keyboard commands, if you're not like routing cursors around, if you're not using linked lists, if you're not, if you aren't sure what a Chrome extension is, then you're going to struggle in a program like this. And we have a skills baseline assessment that we have everybody go through just to make sure that you have the requisite skills. And if you don't, then we have the workplace readiness program. It's an 8-week program that is like preparatory for programs like the CAT program and develops more like intermediate skills.
And also covered by the OVR type of places.
That's correct.
Theoretically, someone could finish this course, get their certificate. They could go in their local area and open up an agency. And again, this is a job you could do from anywhere, so I don't know why you would limit yourself to a local area. But theoretically, they could open their own agency. Is that correct?
That is absolutely right. It's a great call out and I support that 1,000,000%. There's so much of the digital accessibility pie to go around. So, starting your own agency, starting your own consultancy creates competitive advantages for that adventurous, ambitious entrepreneur, right? Because you have less overhead, you have less, cost, that allows organizations like us, to be competitive as well. Right. And then, so we built a software called Dart Suite, DART, Digital Accessibility Report and Test Suite, dartsuite.com. We built Dart Suite because most of our people are screen reader reliant. So we needed a manual tool. We needed an automated tool. We needed a project management system, a ticketing system. We needed it to be accessible. And the problem is like, we didn't have tools that were accessible that could do all that stuff. So we needed to build it. So we were running on it internally for a while. And then we were just like, hey, we should actually make this accessible to other people. It's, agencies, it's really for people that are using people like us, right? It's like, if you want an accessible tool, you're showing accessibility testing. Dart Suite's the thing. So yeah, it's definitely possible for someone who's totally blind to start their own business, start a digital accessibility agency, and go after it. And just like anything else, like any other business, like, the first year out of it, you're just not going to technically be where, a team of 5 or 10 or 20 people with a cumulative 100, 200 years experience, you're just not going to be able to do that kind of stuff. But what you can do is that, like, mom and pop pizza shop, you can do the church, you can do the local whatever, and build up your business, and then start to add team members, start to add technical depth, do exactly what I did, right? I'm not a technical expert. I'm just a sales guy. And I put a team around me to deliver this stuff. So we're actually at NFB convention, at the national convention this year. We're hosting a session on, how to start this business, right? And, I to try to attract some people, we use like a little kind of clickbaity title. I'm almost embarrassed to say it right now, but it's how to start $1 million accessibility business. And
I love that.
And I'm happy to share like all the things, right? Because like I said, the pie's so big, it only people like us are going to hire people like us. It only creates more employment opportunities. It's in alignment with our organizational vision. Teaching other blind entrepreneurs how to launch their digital accessibility business makes good business sense to me.
If someone in let's say a web development agency said, "Oh, I could use tools like this," what does that cost for that agency to get their hands on that tool?
We have free version, so it's got like limited features and stuff, but you can start to get pro features for I think it's like 50 or $60 a month. I'm not sure exactly. I think it's $59 a month. And then we have an agency plan and an enterprise plan.
Okay. So, and just to continue forward, once you go to a website, whether it's the mom and pop pizza place or it's some Fortune 500 company, and you say, "Hey, here's the report. We found 127 issues with your website, blah, blah, blah." Do you then offer the fix, or do you offer somebody that does that sort of stuff to do the fix? What goes on after you give them the report?
It's a great question. Depends on what the client wants. We sell fully managed services. So like the city of South San Francisco hired us to completely remediate their website. So that's a little bit different, right? Where we're doing the testing, we're finding issues, and then we're fixing the website. You know, dazzledry.com is another one who hired us to do that, right? So it depends on if it's a managed service or if it's more of a traditional audit. So if it's managed, we're fixing the website on their behalf. But in a traditional service, we provide different levels of support, but we're really focused on helping them be self-sustaining. So in a traditional approach, we're like, hey, here's the report, and then we'll do a walkthrough meeting with them, walk them through the issues, help them like answer questions, and help them implement the suggestions that we're providing. So we'll provide suggestions on how they fix the website. We'll provide code. We'll provide screenshots. We'll provide everything that they need to actually make the fixes. But when you get into it, you learn that developers mess things up, or they decide to put their own little spin on it, or they introduce a new violation. And so yeah, a lot of things can happen between your exact code that you need to implement and whatever the hell you just came back with.
This seems like you have a fairly large team. How many people are on your team?
We have almost 20 people right now.
Earlier, you had talked about the EU and the new rules that are rolling out as we speak. Can your business go over to a company where it might be one of the 26 areas where you say, "Hey, your site's not accessible, but it's in a language that nobody on your team speaks." Can you still do the reports there?
So we do have Portuguese, Spanish, and Hebrew speakers on our team in addition to English. But if it's outside of that, I would be hesitant to do it because I would be more concerned about our ability to effectively communicate with the team that's implementing the fixes. But programmatically speaking, we could still find things. We could still find things with automation. We could have sighted assistants, doing translation. So we do sighted assistance on demand for our team, but we could have sighted assistants doing like language translation and telling them, hey, this form has this label. And, we could do some workarounds. And I'm sure that they have like language translation stuff. I would just be hesitant to do a project like that. It's a lot of friction for us when there might be someone better suited for a company like that.
How has AI helped or hurt both your business and any kind of accessibility?
I'm super excited about AI. I can't wait for AI to take over everything accessibility because it just is what I believe that there's going to be that people are the future of accessibility. That's the sound clip. People are the future of accessibility, not AI. And AI is going to be fixing everything. But in highly regulated industries, my belief, my philosophy, my strategy, everything that I'm doing is for this purpose. That in this future where AI runs it all, that in regulated and compliance-driven industries, finance, healthcare, insurance, government services, especially when we're talking about protected classes, that there's going to be a human layer that's validating what's happening is actually happening, that businesses are actually not breaking the law, that government services are actually accessible. There will be a human layer, and that human layer will be people with disabilities that happen to be trained and certified in this and are the fastest damn human beings possible. So that's the moat. That's the business strategy. That's what I'm focused on building. So I love that AI is coming in. We're using AI as a part of Dart Suite. We're using AI internally in how we operate. And I am leaning forward, leaning in, and excited about AI.
How many times a year do you have these classes? Is it a rolling situation, or we start September 1st for 14 weeks, or we start August 1st for 14 weeks? How does that work?
Yeah, we're rolling. So we're doing about a class every other month right now. So last year we did six programs throughout the year. And we are in our third program right now, getting ready to kick off the next one.
And typically, how many folks are in each class?
5 to 8 are typically in the class. We do a maximum of 10, but typically it's 5 to 8 clients.
Looking forward to convention. Do you have any idea room numbers, dates, and times for your session?
We'll be at the exhibit hall. So
Okay.
we'll have a booth at the exhibit hall, and I highly recommend everybody come and check it out, because what we're going to be doing, one of the sessions we're doing, is for fun. It's called Accessibility Jeopardy. We're going to try to get some celebrities, like some, you know, people in the community, and have some fun, and then get some audience participation. So we're going to get some audience members to be a part of Accessibility Jeopardy, and it's not just going to be like it's going to be like some digital accessibility, but like some culture and some fun stuff. And I'm going to be dressed up as Ali Trebek, and so the play is A11Y for accessibility. So I'm Ali Trebek, and yeah, so we're going to have a good time. We're going to do the session on the CAT program, the Certified Accessibility Tester program. So if you want to learn more about that, and we'll probably do some Dart Suite stuff in there, and then we'll do the digital accessibility business session as well. And I'll probably show some Dart Suite in there as well.
Tanner, once again, I really appreciate you. Lisa really appreciates you coming on and talking about Accessibility Officer. And we will put links in the show notes. Where can people catch up with you?
If you want to follow me on social media, I'm probably most active on LinkedIn. And I'm everywhere at Tanner Gers, TANNER, and then GERS. So it says it weird with the voiceover and JAWS and NVDA, but it's just GERS.
Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, Tanner.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks again to Tanner for stopping by and telling us all about Accessibility Officer. And Lisa, what a great way for somebody to get their foot in the door, learn a new skill, and then go get a good job or create your own business.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I was a bit, I don't know if the word convicted is right, but when you started talking about using AI to your advantage and not being so resistant to it, I have to admit that's where I am. I'm more the resistant side, and I guess I'm going to have to reluctantly step into the 21st century.
Not even the 21st century, the 2020s, I think, yeah, is more of a way to look. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I've always said, as far as AI goes, that AI makes a lot of things accessible, but it also isn't perfect, just like people aren't. And it's something that you do have to not only learn how to use, but learn how to use it right, so you get what you want out of it. But it was great to hear from Tanner. And again, connect with him in New Orleans if you're going to the convention. I will have all of his locations and sessions down in the show notes so you can take a look there. One other thing I wanted to mention before we let you go is coming up the 1st through the 3rd of August is the Mid-Atlantic Student Seminar put on by the National Association of Blind Students in association with the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. And it will be in Philadelphia, 1301 Race Street at the Hampton Inn. I will have a link down below in the show notes so you can register, get a couple of folks together if you are a student, so you can share a room, keep the costs down. But there's going to be a lot of great programming. The agenda is not out yet, but both Simon and I from the affiliate have been working hard along with some folks from NABS and some other folks from NFB National to get this to be in Philadelphia this summer. Again, the 1st through the 3rd. So check the show notes there.
Convention is right around the corner. David, have a wonderful time. We will have a lot of content thereafter. Anyone else going to convention, have a great time. Send us your stories. Send us your experiences. Tell us who you met, what you liked, what you didn't like. There are a couple of ways you can connect with us. The email address is whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
Or you could give us a call, 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and town if you do leave a voicemail. But tell us how convention was, what you were excited for going, and what may be disappointed or made it even better once you got down there. Again, 267-338-4495.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Take care.